The cargo ship Iron Drift dropped out of hyperspace, and Danny Cole saw trouble waiting for him. The massive space station called Harmony Prime floated in the darkness ahead, but something was wrong. Emergency lights flashed across its hull in patterns that meant danger. Danny had been hauling cargo through alien space for 3 years now, and he knew what those lights meant. Someone was dying over there. Lisa Marsh stepped up beside him in the cockpit. She was a tall woman with short black hair and the kind of eyes that had seen too many fights. She had served in the Earth Marines before becoming a private security contractor, and Danny was glad to have her on his crew. Behind them, Brooks looked up from his data tablet. He was younger than both of them, who studied alien life forms, and he had a nervous habit of pushing his glasses up his nose when things got tense. Danny opened a communication channel to the station but got only static and automated warnings. The message was clear enough. Harmony Prime was under lockdown. No ships could dock. No help was coming. But Danny had a delivery to make. Medical supplies for the delegation. There were a fragile species who ran the station as a neutral meeting place for dozens of alien races. They had invited humans into galactic society just 2 years ago, though they kept all humans confined to a small quarantine sector. Earth had been classified as a Category 7, which meant that humans were considered too dangerous to mix freely with other species. Danny thought it was ridiculous. He was just a cargo hauler, not a monster. He found a way to dock at an emergency port on the station's lower section. The airlock opened with a hiss, and the 3 humans stepped into chaos. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were running through the corridors in panic. Some were tall and thin with blue skin. Others were short and covered in fur. All of them were terrified. An official stumbled toward them. His insect body was trembling so hard that his wings made a buzzing sound. His name was, and Danny recognized him as a minor ambassador. His compound eyes were wide with fear as he spoke through a translation device hanging from his neck. The station had been taken over by terrorists. A group called the Silent Blade had seized control of the life support systems. They were demanding money and the release of prisoners from various galactic jails. But that was not the worst part. The terrorists had released hunters into the station corridors. Hunters were predatory creatures from a jungle world, fast and deadly, with claws that could tear through metal. The alien security forces had tried to fight them and failed. Now they were hiding while the hunters roamed free. Danny felt Lisa tense beside him. She was already thinking about weapons and tactics. Looked pale but curious, his scientific mind working even in the middle of a crisis. "How long until life support fails?" Danny asked. 6 hours, answered. Maybe less. The terrorists have locked us out of all the main systems. We cannot regain control. We are preparing to evacuate as many people as we can, but our ships are small. We cannot save everyone. Danny looked around at the crowded corridor. There had to be tens of thousands of aliens on this station. Families, traders, diplomats, workers. All of them would die if the life support failed, and they were just going to leave most of them behind. "What about fighting back?" Lisa asked. "Take out the terrorists and the hunters, retake the station." Made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. "Impossible," he said. "The hunters alone have killed 30 of our security officers. They are apex predators. No species on this station can face them and survive." Lisa smiled, and it was not a friendly smile. "No species on this station," she repeated. "But what about us?" Stared at her with all of his compound eyes. He did not understand what she meant. To him, humans were just another species, perhaps a bit strange because they came from a harsh planet, but nothing special. He had no idea what humans were truly capable of. Danny understood what Lisa was suggesting. It was crazy and dangerous and probably suicidal, but he thought about all those people who would die in 6 hours. He thought about the families hiding in their quarters, waiting for help that would never come. He thought about what it meant to be human. Back on Earth, humans had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They had climbed mountains and crossed deserts and sailed across oceans that wanted to kill them. They had fought lions and bears and wolves. They had hunted mammoths with wooden spears. The galaxy thought humans were monsters because they came from but the truth was simpler than that. Humans were survivors. They did not give up. Danny turned to Lisa, and he did not need to explain his decision. They already knew. "We need weapons," Lisa said, "and we need volunteers. Anyone else from the human delegation who wants to help." Nodded, "I can coordinate with the alien engineers. Show them how to work around the lockout while you handle the hunters." Was staring at them like they had lost their minds. "You cannot be serious," he said. "The hunters will tear you apart. You are soft creatures with no claws, no armor, no venom. You will die." Danny put a hand on the ambassador's thin shoulder, being careful not to break anything. "We might," he admitted, "but those people have 6 hours to live, and we are not going to stand here and watch them die. That is not what humans do." He walked past the stunned and into the corridor beyond. Lisa followed him, already planning their attack, stayed behind for a moment to gather information from about the station layout. The hunt was about to begin. But this time, the hunters were going to learn what it meant to face a species from a. Danny did not know if they would survive the next 6 hours. He only knew that they had to try. 40,000 lives were counting on them, even if those lives belonged to aliens who thought humans were monsters. Maybe they were right. Maybe humans were monsters. But sometimes Danny thought monsters were exactly what you needed. The maintenance tunnels beneath Harmony Prime were dark and filled with the smell of alien machinery. Danny led his small team through the narrow passages, listening for any sound that might warn them of danger. They had gathered 7 volunteers from the human delegation. 7 humans against an unknown number of hunters and armed terrorists. The odds were terrible, but nobody complained. Lisa moved beside Danny with the silence of a predator. She carried a metal pipe that she had pulled from a broken wall. It was not much of a weapon, but Danny had seen her do terrible things with less. Behind them came the others. A man named Greg Palmer, who had worked construction on colony worlds. A woman named Amy Shaw, who had been a police officer before joining a trading company. 2 brothers named Pete, and who ran a small shipping business. And finally, a quiet woman named who had not explained her background, but moved like someone who knew how to fight. Had stayed behind with the alien engineers, trying to help them bypass the terrorist lockout on the life support systems. He would communicate with Danny through a small radio device whenever he had useful information. For now, the humans were on their own. They found their first hunter in a cargo bay on the 3rd level. The creature was larger than Danny had expected, nearly 3 meters tall when it stood on its back legs. It had dark green scales and claws that curved like sickles. Its eyes glowed yellow in the dim light, and it was feeding on something that Danny did not want to look at too closely. The aliens watching through security cameras saw what happened next. They would talk about it for years afterward. Lisa did not hesitate. She charged at the hunter with her metal pipe raised high. The creature turned and roared, showing rows of teeth designed for tearing flesh. It swiped at her with one massive claw. Lisa ducked under the blow and swung her pipe into the creature's knee joint. There was a crack of breaking bone, and the hunter stumbled. Danny was right behind her. He had found a fire extinguisher in the corridor, and he slammed it into the hunter's skull with all his strength. The creature staggered but did not fall. Greg came in from the side with a piece of sharp metal and drove it into the hunter's throat. Blood sprayed across the cargo bay floor. The hunter collapsed. It had taken less than 30 seconds. Somewhere on the station, Ambassador was watching through a security feed. His entire body was shaking. He had seen hunters kill a dozen trained soldiers without slowing down. These soft, clawless humans had just beaten one to death with improvised weapons and no armor. Lisa was bleeding from a deep cut on her arm where the hunter's claw had caught her. Amy pulled out a small medical kit and started treating the wound. The other aliens watching would have expected Lisa to collapse from pain or blood loss. Instead, she stood calmly while Amy wrapped the injury in bandages. "Does it hurt?" Pete asked. "Of course it hurts," Lisa said, "but pain is just information. It tells you something is wrong. It does not control you unless you let it." She tested her grip on the pipe. The arm still worked. That was good enough for her. Danny contacted through the radio. "One down," he reported. "How many more are there?" His voice came back with bad news. "Security records show that the terrorists released 8 hunters into the station. 7 more to go. Also, the life support situation is worse than we thought. We have less than 5 hours now." Danny shared this information with his team. Nobody suggested turning back. They had made their choice when they volunteered. Now they would see it through. The next 2 hours were bloody and brutal. The humans hunted the hunters, tracking them through corridors and cargo bays and maintenance tunnels. Each fight was different. Some were quick. Others were long and painful. By the time they had killed 4 more hunters, every human was wounded in some way. Greg had deep scratches across his back that would leave permanent scars. Amy was limping from a bite wound on her leg, had lost 2 fingers on his left hand when a hunter's jaws snapped shut on them, had taken a hit to the head that left her dizzy and bleeding from a cut above her eye. But they kept going, they kept fighting. The aliens watching could not understand it. Their security footage showed humans taking wounds that should have killed them, then getting up and continuing the battle. They saw humans working together in perfect coordination without needing to speak, using hand signals and glances to communicate. They saw humans refuse to abandon wounded teammates, carrying injured friends while still fighting off attacks. Explained it to as they watched the footage together. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters," he said. "We chased our prey across entire continents until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our bodies are designed to keep functioning through pain and injury. And we are social creatures. We protect our pack. We never leave anyone behind." Could not process what he was seeing. "These creatures are terrifying," he whispered. "Yes," agreed, "but right now they are terrifying in your defense. Be grateful." By the end of the second hour, 5 hunters were dead. Lisa had killed 2 of them herself. Danny had the blood of 3 species on his clothes, and he was running on nothing but willpower and the knowledge that thousands of innocent people were depending on him. 3 more hunters remained somewhere on the station, and the terrorists were starting to realize that something had gone very wrong with their plan. The monsters they had released to spread terror were being hunted by even bigger monsters. Monsters who walked on 2 legs, used tools, and refused to die no matter how badly they were hurt. The humans were coming, and nothing was going to stop them. The terrorist leader was a reptilian creature called his name was, and he had planned this operation for 2 years. Every detail had been perfect. His team had taken control of the station without firing a shot. The hunters had spread terror among the civilian population. The alien security forces were cowering in their barracks, too afraid to act. Everything was going according to plan. Then the humans arrived. Watched the security footage with growing anger. 7 humans, armed with nothing but improvised weapons, had killed 5 of his hunters in just 2 hours. 5 of the deadliest predators in the galaxy, brought down by soft-skinned creatures from a backwater planet. It should have been impossible. He opened a communication channel that would broadcast across the entire station. His voice was cold and threatening. "Humans," he said, "this is of the Silent Blade. You will stop your attacks immediately, or I will begin executing hostages. 1 every 10 minutes until you surrender." Danny heard the message through his radio. He was crouched in a corridor on the 7th level, catching his breath after their last fight. His body ached in a dozen different places, and he was fairly sure that 2 of his ribs were cracked. But he was still standing. That was what mattered. Lisa looked at him with blood dripping down her face from a wound she had not bothered to treat. "He is bluffing," she said. If he kills the hostages, he loses his leverage. He needs them alive. Danny nodded. He had reached the same conclusion. The terrorists wanted money and the release of prisoners. Dead hostages would get them nothing but a death sentence. Was desperate, and desperate people made mistakes. Keep hunting, Danny said to his team. We finish the hunters, then we go after the terrorists themselves. They split into two groups. Lisa took Amy and toward the upper levels where two of the remaining hunters had been spotted. Danny led Greg and the brothers toward the lower sections. Pete's hand was still bleeding where his brother had tied a rough bandage around the stumps of his missing fingers, but he insisted on continuing. We came here to do a job, Pete said. We are not stopping until it is done. His voice came through the radio with new information. Danny, I found something important. The terrorists are not just after ransom money. Station records show they have been trying to access the research labs on level 12. There is experimental technology there, some kind of new propulsion system they have been developing. I think that is their real target. Danny processed this information while moving through a corridor filled with strange alien machinery. The ransom demand was a cover. The terrorists wanted the technology, and they were using the hostage situation to buy time while they cracked the lab security. That changed everything. He was about to respond when a small voice interrupted him. Hello, is someone there? Danny stopped. The voice had come from above him. He looked up and saw a ventilation grate in the ceiling. Behind it, two large compound eyes were staring down at him. It was a child by the look of it. The small creature had crawled into the ventilation system to hide from the hunters. It was trembling with fear, and Danny could see that it had been crying. Aliens cried too, apparently. It is okay, Danny said softly. We are here to help. What is your name? The young whispered, Are you human? Yes, I am Danny. Can you come down from there? Hesitated. My parents told me that humans are dangerous, that you come from a world of death. Danny could have laughed at the irony. Here he was, covered in blood and wounds, asking a child to trust him. He probably looked like a monster from the young alien's nightmares. Your parents are right, Danny said honestly. We do come from a dangerous world, but that does not mean we are bad. Sometimes dangerous creatures are exactly what you need when you are in trouble. Right now, bad people have taken over this station. We are trying to stop them. Will you help us? Thought about this for a long moment. Then the young pushed open the grate and dropped down into Danny's arms. The alien child weighed almost nothing, like holding a bundle of sticks wrapped in paper. Danny sat down gently. Do you know the station well? Yes, my family has lived here for 3 years. I know all the secret passages. Danny smiled. Then you are going to help us save everyone. Can you show us how to get to level 12 without being seen? His compound eyes brightened with something that might have been excitement or hope. Follow me, the young said. They moved through the station using routes that did not appear on any official map. Knew every maintenance shaft and emergency passage. The young alien led them past terrorist patrols without being detected, whispering warnings whenever danger was near. Meanwhile, Lisa's team found the remaining 3 hunters clustered together in a cargo bay on level 9. The creatures had learned to fear the humans and were now hunting in a pack for protection. It did not save them. Lisa led her team through a section of the station that was venting toxic atmosphere into space. The air was poison, and any alien species would have died within seconds of exposure. Lisa held her breath and sprinted through the danger zone in 30 seconds. Amy and followed her. Their lungs burned and their eyes watered, but they survived. They attacked the hunters from an unexpected direction. The fight was brutal and bloody. By the end, all 3 hunters were dead, and Lisa had added 2 more scars to her collection. She reported to Danny through the radio. All hunters eliminated, she said. What is our next target? Danny looked at who was waiting patiently beside him. The terrorists, he said. We are going to finish this. 4 hours remained on the life support countdown. Half of Danny's team was wounded badly enough that they should have been in a hospital. Instead, they prepared for war. The aliens hiding throughout the station watched through security cameras as the humans regrouped and moved toward the terrorist positions, received reports from his scouts that made his blood run cold. The humans were everywhere at once. They moved without rest, without sleep, without fear, and they were coming for him. Lisa reached the life support center first. The room was large and filled with machines that controlled the air and water and temperature for the entire station. It was also filled with explosives. The terrorists had rigged the whole system to blow if anyone tried to take it back by force. One wrong move, and 40,000 people would die instantly instead of slowly. She contacted through her radio. "We have a problem," she said quietly. "The whole room is wired. I count at least 20 detonation points connected to a central trigger." His response came after a long pause. "Send me images," he said. "I might be able to find a weakness." Lisa used her communication device to capture images of the explosive setup. The terrorists had done their work well. The bombs were placed to cause maximum damage to the life support systems. Even if some of them failed to explode, the rest would be enough to destroy everything. But was a scientist. He studied alien biology and technology for a living, and as he examined the images, he noticed something important. "The central trigger," he said. "It is using a detonation system. Those systems have a 3-second delay between activation and explosion. It is a safety feature to prevent accidental detonation. If you can disable the trigger in those 3 seconds, the bombs will not go off." 3 seconds. Lisa had worked with less. She signaled to Amy and they would need to move fast and work together. One mistake and they were all dead. Meanwhile, Danny was approaching the command hub from the opposite direction. Had shown him a route through the maintenance tunnels that brought him out behind the terrorist positions. The young had wanted to come with him, but Danny had insisted that stay hidden in a safe location. This was going to be dangerous, and he did not want the child anywhere near the fighting. Greg and the brothers were with him. They had gathered better weapons along the way. Energy pistols taken from dead terrorists, metal rods sharpened into spears, and pieces of armor salvaged from destroyed equipment. They looked like warriors from some ancient Earth battlefield, covered in blood and wounds but still ready to fight. Danny stepped out of the tunnel and into a corridor filled with armed terrorists. There were at least 15 of them, all pointing weapons at him. He raised his hand slowly, showing that he was not holding anything dangerous. "I want to talk to," Danny said calmly. The terrorists exchanged confused glances. They had expected the humans to attack with violence, not words. But one of them spoke into a communication device, and a moment later appeared at the end of the corridor. The leader was impressive in person. He stood nearly 2 meters tall, with dark green scales and eyes that burned with intelligence and cruelty. He looked at Danny like a predator examining prey. "You are the human causing all this trouble," said. "I have watched you on the security feeds. You are quite resilient for such a small creature." Danny shrugged. "We get that a lot." "What do you want, human? Have you come to surrender?" "No," Danny said. "I have come to offer you a deal. Release the hostages and surrender to station security. In return, I will make sure you receive a fair trial instead of being executed on the spot." Laughed. It was a harsh sound like rocks grinding together. "You are in no position to make demands. I have an army. I have weapons. I have bombs that will destroy this entire station. What do you have?" Danny smiled. "I have something better. I have friends." At that moment, Lisa made her move. She burst into the life support center and sprinted toward the central trigger. A terrorist guard tried to stop her, but Amy tackled him before he could react, covered them with suppressive fire from a stolen energy pistol. Lisa reached the trigger just as another terrorist activated it. She had 3 seconds. Her hands moved with the speed and precision of someone who had trained for combat her entire adult life. She tore open the trigger housing and identified the connection points. 2 seconds. She ripped out 3 wires simultaneously, praying that information was correct. 1 second. The countdown stopped. The bombs did not explode. Lisa let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. Life support secure, she reported through the radio. Back in the corridor, Danny saw confusion spread across face. There was receiving reports through his earpiece. Reports that his plan was falling apart. Reports that the humans had disabled his bombs. Reports that his forces were being overwhelmed across the station. The terrorist coalition began to fracture. Some of the aliens in his army were from species that had old grudges against each other. They had worked together for the promise of wealth and revenge, but now that the plan was failing, their unity collapsed. Arguments broke out. Weapons were pointed at former allies. Danny used the distraction to signal his team. Greg and the brothers emerged from the shadows and attacked the terrorist positions from multiple directions. The fighting was brief and brutal. Humans did not fight fair. They fought to win. Within minutes, most of the terrorists were dead or captured, but had escaped the chaos. He retreated toward the command hub with a handful of loyal followers, and he took a hostage with him. Ambassador. Danny found them in the central command room, had one arm wrapped around his fragile body, and his other hand held a small device that Danny recognized immediately. A personal explosive, enough to kill everyone in the room. Stay back, hissed. This device is linked to my heartbeat. If I die, it explodes. If you come any closer, I trigger it manually. Either way, this pathetic insect dies with me. Was trembling so badly that his wings made a constant buzzing sound. His compound eyes found Danny across the room, and Danny saw something he had not expected. Hope. The alien ambassador actually believed that Danny could save him. Danny had no idea if he could, but he was going to try. Let him go, Danny said. Take me instead. A human hostage is worth more than a diplomat. You can use me to negotiate with Earth's government. Considered this. His reptilian eyes studied Danny with cold calculation. The human made a good point. Earth was a new power in galactic politics. Having one of their citizens as a hostage might provide leverage that an ambassador could not. Very well said. Come forward slowly. Danny walked toward his enemy, knowing that he might be walking toward his death. Danny walked slowly across the command room, keeping his hands visible and his movements calm. Every step brought him closer to and the explosive device that could kill them all. Behind him, he could feel Lisa positioning herself in the doorway. She had followed the sounds of conflict and arrived just in time to witness his decision. Released and grabbed Danny instead. This grip was strong, stronger than Danny had expected. Reptilian claws dug into his shoulder, drawing blood that dripped down his already ruined shirt. Danny did not flinch. Pain was just information, like Lisa had said. It did not control him. Stumbled away from his captor on trembling legs. The ambassador could not believe what had just happened. A human, a creature from a world of death, had traded his own life to save an alien he barely knew. It made no sense to his logical mind, but it was happening. Run, Danny said too. Get out of here. The ambassador hesitated for just a moment. Then he turned and fled toward the doorway where Lisa was waiting. She guided him to safety with one hand while keeping her eyes fixed on Danny. Now, said with satisfaction, we negotiate. You will contact your government and tell them that I have one of their citizens. They will give me a ship and safe passage out of this system. If they refuse, I will kill you and destroy this station. Danny almost felt sorry for him, still did not understand what he was dealing with. He thought humans were like other species. He thought they would surrender when threatened. He thought wrong. You made a mistake, Danny said quietly. What mistake? You let go of the alien. Did not understand at first. Then he saw Lisa raise her weapon. It was a small energy pistol, barely powerful enough to wound, but Lisa was not aiming at. She was aiming at his hand, the hand holding the explosive trigger. The shot was impossible. The angle was wrong. The distance was too great. The gap between Danny's body and his hand was barely wide enough for a finger. No alien marksman in the galaxy could have made that shot. Lisa made it. The energy bolt burned through the narrow gap and struck his hand exactly where his fingers met the trigger. The screamed in pain and dropped the device. Danny moved faster than thought, spinning in his captor's grip and slamming his elbow into his throat. The terrorist leader staggered backward, choking. Danny dove for the explosive device. He had to get it away from before the could recover. His fingers closed around the small metal cylinder just as lunged toward him with murder in his eyes. There was no time to throw the device away, no time to disarm it. Danny did the only thing he could do. He wrapped his body around the explosive and turned away from, shielding the room from the blast. The device exploded. It was not a full detonation. Lisa's shot had damaged the trigger mechanism, and only part of the explosive charge ignited. But it was still enough to tear through Danny's back and side, sending him flying across the room in a spray of blood and fire. Lisa killed with 3 shots to the chest before they could move. Then she was running toward Danny, screaming into her radio for to get to the command room immediately. Danny lay on the floor in a pool of his own blood. His vision was fading in and out. He could feel his body trying to shut down, trying to escape the pain through unconsciousness. But he fought it. He had to know if they had won. Lisa knelt beside him, pressing her hands against the worst of his wounds. Her face was pale, and Danny realized he had never seen her look scared before. That probably meant he was dying. "Stay with me," Lisa said. "Is on his way. You are going to be fine." Danny tried to laugh, but it came out as a wet cough. "We both know that is not true." "Shut up, you do not get to die. Not after everything we went through." Arrived with a medical kit that he had grabbed from somewhere. He started working on Danny's wounds with hands that shook slightly but never stopped moving. The techniques he used would have horrified any alien doctor. He was cutting and stitching and cauterizing with tools that seemed more suited for construction than medicine. But he was keeping Danny alive. The next few hours were a blur of pain and recovery, worked miracles with limited supplies. Lisa refused to leave Danny's side. The other humans gathered around their fallen leader, wounded themselves but unwilling to rest until they knew he would survive. When Danny finally woke up in a proper medical bay, the first thing he saw was Ambassador standing beside his bed. The compound eyes were wet with what might have been tears. "You saved us," said, "all of us. 40,000 lives and you saved them all." Danny tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. His entire body felt like it had been torn apart and put back together wrong, which, he supposed, was pretty close to the truth. "We just did what needed to be done," Danny said. No, shook his head. "What you did was extraordinary. I watched your people fight creatures that would have destroyed any other species. I watched you take wounds that should have killed you and keep fighting. I watched you trade your own life for mine without hesitation. I do not understand humans at all." Danny smiled despite the pain. "We come from a harsh world," he said. "It taught us that survival is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It is about refusing to give up. It is about protecting each other. It is about doing the right thing even when it costs you everything." Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke again. "I am going to recommend that humans be released from quarantine. You are not monsters. You are something else entirely. I am not sure we have a word for it." "Guardians," Lisa suggested. She was sitting in a chair nearby, her own wounds bandaged but already healing. "That is what we call people who protect others." Guardians repeated, "Yes, I think that is appropriate." Over the following days, Danny recovered slowly. He would carry scars for the rest of his life. deep marks across his back and side where the explosive had torn through his flesh, reminders of the price he had paid to save 40,000 strangers. But he did not regret it, not for a single moment. On the last day before the Iron Drift departed from Harmony Prime, Young came to visit Danny in the medical bay. The child had become something of a celebrity on the station, praised for helping the humans navigate the secret passages during the crisis. Danny said softly, "Can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Why did you risk so much for us? We are not your people. We kept you in quarantine because we were afraid of you. Why did you save us?" Danny thought about the question for a long time. It was a good question, an important question. Finally, he answered. "Because you needed help," Danny said, "and we were able to give it. That is all the reason humans have ever needed. We do not protect people because they deserve it. We protect them because they need it. That is what makes us who we are." His compound eyes were bright with understanding. The young reached out and touched Danny's hand gently. "Thank you," whispered, "for everything." Danny smiled. The galaxy still saw humans as creatures from a harsh planet, dangerous and unpredictable, and maybe that was true, but now they knew something else about humanity too. Humans were protectors, guardians, creatures who would walk through fire and blood to save people they had never met, creatures who refused to give up, no matter the cost. The aliens were right to be afraid of humans, but now they also had a reason to be grateful. And that, Danny thought, was a good start.